August 13th, 1940, 6:23 a.m., Luftwaffe base, northern France. Oberst Johannes Fink stood on the tarmac watching his bomber crews prepare for what Berlin called Adlertag, Eagle Day, the day the Luftwaffe would break the Royal Air Force and open the path to invading Britain. He commanded Kampfgeschwader 2, one of Germany's premier bomber wings, 250 aircraft under his control. The largest aerial assault in history was about to begin. His intelligence officer approached with morning reconnaissance photos, pointing to strange metal towers dotting the British coastline. Herr Oberst, these structures, the British have built them all along the south coast. Approximately 40 towers, each 350 feet tall. Our analysts believe there's some kind of radio detection equipment. Fink barely glanced at the photos. Radio towers? For what? Broadcasting propaganda to our pilots? He laughed and lit a cigarette. The British are grasping at straws. They have perhaps 600 fighters left. We have 2,800 aircraft. Superior training. Combat experience from Poland, France, Norway. These metal towers won't save them. Sir, some of our pilots report that British fighters seem to know exactly where we are, even through clouds. They appear at the exact altitude and position to intercept. British luck, Fink interrupted. Or perhaps their pilots are simply braver than we thought. But bravery doesn't matter when you're outnumbered 4-1. He crushed his cigarette under his boot. By tonight, those towers will be scrap metal. By next week, the RAF will be destroyed. By September, we'll be landing in Dover. What Oberst Fink didn't know, what Luftwaffe intelligence had catastrophically failed to understand, was that those radio towers represented the most revolutionary military technology of the war. A system called radio direction finding, or as the British called it, radar. And in exactly 4 hours, those towers would vector 72 Spitfires and Hurricanes directly onto his bomber formation with such precision that 47 of his aircraft wouldn't make it home. The woman partially responsible for this technology was sitting in a control room 60 miles away, watching green dots appear on a cathode ray screen. Her name was Elizabeth Scott, age 24, officially a clerk in the Women's Auxiliary Air Force. Actually, a radar operator who could track German bombers from 120 miles away. She was about to guide British fighters to intercept Fink's bombers before they even reached the English coast. The Germans were flying into an invisible net they didn't believe existed. To understand German shock at what was coming, you need to understand Luftwaffe assumptions about air warfare. Assumptions built on experience that was about to become obsolete. German air doctrine in 1940 reflected lessons from Poland and France. Overwhelming force wins. Deploy hundreds of bombers simultaneously. Saturate defenses, even if defenders intercept some formations. Most bombers reach targets. Acceptable losses 5 to 10%. Fighters must patrol to intercept. Defending fighters can't be everywhere. They patrol likely approach routes. Most bomber formations reach targets before interception. The English Channel provides early warning, but only 20 to 30 minutes. Not enough time for comprehensive defense. Visual detection is the limit. Observers on the coast can spot approaching aircraft, but only in good weather, only during daylight, only within 10 to 15 miles. This gives minimal warning time. Defenders must guess where attacks will come and position fighters accordingly. Numbers determine victory. Germany had 2,800 aircraft, 1,300 bombers, 1,500 fighters. Britain had approximately 600 fighters. Simple mathematics, Germany wins. This doctrine had worked perfectly in every previous campaign. Luftwaffe combat record, 1939 to 1940. Poland, air superiority achieved in 48 hours. Norway, air superiority achieved in 72 hours. France, air superiority achieved in 2 weeks. Aircraft losses, 3 to 8% per major operation. Enemy fighters shot down versus German losses, 3-to-1 ratio consistently. Reichsmarschall Hermann Göring, Luftwaffe commander, was supremely confident. In a meeting with Hitler on August 1st, 1940, he declared, "The RAF has perhaps 600 fighters. We will destroy 200 in the first week, another 200 in the second week. By the third week, they will have nothing left. Their radar towers are irrelevant. They can see us coming, but they cannot stop us. Numbers decide everything in air warfare, and we have overwhelming numbers." Luftwaffe intelligence reports about British radar were dismissive. July 1940. British chain-home radar system consists of crude radio equipment detecting aircraft at ranges up to 100 miles. However, accuracy is poor, cannot determine altitude, exact position, or aircraft type. Intelligence value minimal. Recommend ignoring in tactical planning. August 1940. British fighters continue to intercept our formations with suspicious accuracy. Possible explanations. 1. Coast watchers. 2. British fighter patrols in force. 3. Luck. The radar towers may provide general warning but cannot guide precise interceptions. Recommendation: continue offensive operations as planned. What Luftwaffe intelligence missed was that British radar wasn't just detecting aircraft, it was creating an integrated air defense system that would revolutionize warfare. And the Germans were about to discover this the hardest way possible. While German pilots dismissed British radar as radio towers, British scientists and military planners had spent 5 years building something unprecedented, the world's first integrated air defense network. The architect was Air Chief Marshal Hugh Dowding, commander of RAF Fighter Command. Considered stubborn and difficult by colleagues, he devoted his career to solving one problem: how do you defend Britain against bomber attack? His solution was called the Dowding System. Chain-home radar stations. Number of stations: 51 operational by July 1940. Coverage: east and south coasts of Britain. Detection range: 120 miles maximum. Minimum altitude: 500 feet, a high-level bombers. Maximum altitude: 40,000 feet. Accuracy: within 5 miles horizontally, plus or minus 1,000 feet altitude. But radar was just the first layer. Chain-home low stations. Number: 30 stations. Purpose: detect low-flying aircraft below 500 feet. Detection range: 35 miles. Coverage: fill gaps in chain-home coverage. The filter room. All radar data fed into central filter room at RAF Bentley Priory. WWII, Women's Auxiliary Air Force. Operators received raw radar contacts, removed duplicates, identified genuine aircraft, and created a single unified picture of all aircraft over Britain. Filter room capacity. Track up to 100 simultaneous raids. Processing time, radar contact to filtered track, 30 to 60 seconds. Operators, 200 plus WAF personnel working in shifts. Sector control rooms. Filtered tracks were sent to sector control rooms commanding fighter squadrons. Controllers would vector fighters onto German formations using radio communication. Number of sector control rooms: 7 covering southeast England. Response time, radar detection to fighters airborne, 4 to 8 minutes. Communication, direct radio links to fighter squadrons. Observer course. Once German aircraft crossed the coast, visual observers tracked them and reported positions, supplementing radar. 30,000 volunteers and observer corps posts across Britain provided continuous tracking. The system in action. Chain-home radar detects German formation at 120 miles. Filter room processes contact, determines size, altitude, heading. Sector controller scrambles fighter squadrons. Fighters climb to intercept altitude while controller provides vectors. Observer corps tracks raid inland, updates position continuously. Controller vectors fighters onto German formation with precision. Fighters intercept bombers before reaching target. The entire system operated in near real time, providing continuous tracking from detection to intercept. Flight Lieutenant Peter Townsend, Hurricane pilot, described the system. We'd be sitting at dispersal, perhaps playing cards, when the telephone would ring. Squadron scramble. We'd run to our aircraft, take off, and the controller would be on the radio immediately. Bandits 50 miles southeast, Angels 15, meaning enemy aircraft 50 miles away at 15,000 feet. We'd climb and the controller would update constantly. Bandits now 40 miles heading northwest. By the time we reached altitude, we'd be positioned perfectly to intercept. It was uncanny. We always knew exactly where Jerry was. What made the system revolutionary wasn't any single technology, it was integration. Radar detected. Filter room processed. Controllers commanded. Fighters intercepted. All pieces worked together seamlessly. The Germans had radar too. They'd invented it independently, but they used it for ship detection and anti-aircraft gun aiming. They never conceived of using radar as the foundation of an integrated defense system. This conceptual gap was about to cost them dearly. August 13th, 1940, at 10:17 a.m., RAF Bentley Priory filter room. Elizabeth Scott sat at her station, watching the cathode ray tube display. Green dots appeared. Radar returns from Chain Home Station at Dover. Multiple contacts forming up over Calais. Contact. Bearing 135 degrees, range 95 miles, she reported into her microphone. Estimated 40-plus aircraft. Altitude 12,000 feet, heading northwest. Around her, 30 other WWII operators reported similar contacts. The plots appeared on the master table. A huge map of southeast England where WWII plotters moved markers representing German formations. Squadron leader Patricia Clark, senior controller, assessed the developing picture. 5 separate German formations, totaling perhaps 200 aircraft, all heading for southeast England. Alert all sectors, she ordered. Large raid developing. Estimated time to coast, 18 minutes. Across southeast England, fighter squadrons scrambled. RAF response. August 13th, 10:17 to 10:35 a.m. Squadrons scrambled 12, approximately 144 fighters. Time from first radar contact to fighters airborne, 6 minutes. Fighter positioning. Vectored to intercept before German formations reached coast. Meanwhile, Oberst Fink led his bomber formation across the channel, supremely confident. His formation of 87 Dornier. 17 bombers flew in tight formation at 12,000 feet, protected by 40 Messerschmitt Bf 110 heavy fighters. At 10:35 a.m., his radio crackled, "Achtung! Enemy fighters, high and ahead!" Fink looked up and saw what should have been impossible. Dozens of British Spitfires and Hurricanes were positioned perfectly above his formation, diving to attack. They shouldn't have been there. British fighters should have been patrolling randomly or scrambling late. Instead, they were positioned precisely where they needed to be at the right altitude at the right time. The British fighters hit his formation like a hammer. Combat action. August 13th, 10:35 to 11:15 a.m. German bombers shot down 13. German bombers damaged and turned back 34. German fighters shot down 7. British fighters shot down 4. Fink's formation never reached its target. The survivors turned back, jettisoning bombs over the channel. As he landed back in France, Fink was stunned. They were waiting for us, exactly where we would be. The right altitude, the right position. How is this possible? His intelligence officer had no answer. RAF fighters scrambled, 700 plus. German losses, 47 aircraft. British losses, 13 fighters, 7 pilots killed. German bombers reaching primary targets, less than 40%. August 14th. German sorties, 1,800 plus. RAF fighters scrambled, 850 plus. German losses, 75 aircraft. British losses, 34 fighters, 12 pilots killed. Bombers reaching targets, less than 35%. August 15th, Black Thursday. German sorties, 2,119, largest single day. RAF fighters scrambled, 974. German losses, 76 aircraft. British losses, 34 fighters, 16 pilots killed. Bombers reaching targets, less than 30%. But across the channel, Elizabeth Scott was already tracking the next German formation approaching. Over the next 3 days, August 13th to 15th, 1940, the pattern repeated relentlessly. August 13th, Eagle Day. German sorties, 1,485. Luftwaffe pilots returning from missions reported the same phenomenon. British fighters were intercepting them with impossible precision. Hauptmann Wilhelm Raab, Bf 110 pilot, wrote in his diary August 15th, 3 missions today. On every single mission, RAF fighters appeared at exactly the right moment, right altitude, right position to intercept. This is not luck. This is not random patrol. They know we are coming. They know our altitude, heading, numbers. But how? We fly through clouds. They still find us. We vary altitude. They're still at the correct height. We change course. They adjust and intercept anyway. It's as if they can see us from hundreds of kilometers away. Morale is declining. Crews are asking how we're supposed to fight an enemy who knows our every move. Luftwaffe intelligence finally began taking British radar seriously. New reports in late August acknowledged. August 18th, 1940. British radar system is more sophisticated than initially assessed. Evidence suggests they can track formations continuously from French coast to targets. British fighters are being directed onto our formations with precision that indicates real-time tracking and control. Radar towers represent significant threat to operations. But acknowledgement came too late. Finally understanding the threat, Goering ordered attacks on British radar stations. August 12, 1940, radar station attacks. Ventnor Radar Station, Isle of Wight, hit by 15 bombs, knocked offline for 11 days. Pevensey Radar Station, damaged, back online in 24 hours. Rye Radar Station, damaged, back online in 8 hours. Dover Radar Station, minor damage, never went offline. The attacks achieved tactical success. Ventnor was out of action for nearly 2 weeks, but strategically, the attacks failed to break the system. Why? Redundancy. The 51 radar stations provided overlapping coverage. Losing one station created a gap, but adjacent stations covered most of the blind spot. The filter room compensated by relying more heavily on observer corps reports in the affected area. Moreover, British engineers had designed radar towers to be difficult targets. The towers were open steel frameworks. Bombs passed through without exploding. The critical electronics were in small concrete bunkers at the tower base, difficult to hit precisely. But the fundamental problem was strategic. Goering didn't understand that radar was just one component of an integrated system. Destroying radar stations didn't destroy the system. It degraded it. And the system had enough redundancy to continue functioning. Worse, attacking radar stations diverted Luftwaffe effort from the real target, RAF fighter squadrons and airfields. After just a few days of radar station attacks, Goering changed strategy, focusing on RAF airfields instead. This decision, stopping radar station attacks just as they were beginning to have effect, was one of the critical German mistakes of the Battle of Britain. Late August through early September 1940 represented the crisis point. The Luftwaffe shifted to attacking RAF fighter airfields, attempting to destroy fighter command on the ground. Pilot strength, 840, 200 below establishment. Pilot losses, 348 killed or wounded since July 10th. Aircraft production, 470 fighters produced in August. Serviceability rate, 67%, down from 78% in July. Squadron combat effectiveness, declining due to exhausted pilots. Fighter command was being ground down. Replacement pilots had minimal training. Experienced squadron leaders were dead or wounded. Some squadrons were at 50% strength. But the radar system kept working. RAF fighter command status, September 1st, 1940. Operational fighters, 738, down from 871 on August 13th. Every day, Chain Home detected German formations 100+ miles away. Filter rooms processed the data. Controllers scrambled fighters. The system allowed fighter command to use its declining force with maximum efficiency, launching fighters only when needed, vectoring them precisely onto German formations, avoiding wasteful standing patrols. Without radar, fighter command would have needed standing patrols consuming fuel and pilot hours, with fighters often in wrong positions when attacks came. Radar allowed fighters to stay on the ground until needed, then intercept with precision. Squadron leader Douglas Bader, commanding 242 Squadron, explained the operational advantage. Without radar, we'd need continuous patrols. 15 minutes patrol. Land. Refuel. Next squadron up. Exhausting. Inefficient. We'd be in wrong place most of the time. With radar, we sit at dispersal until controller calls. Then we take off, climb to altitude, and controller puts us exactly where we need to be. We fight fresh, with full fuel, positioned perfectly. Radar isn't just early warning, it's force multiplication. Makes our 600 fighters worth 1,200. The statistics proved Bader's point. RAF sortie efficiency, with versus without radar. With radar, average warning time, 18 to 25 minutes. Fighter positioning accuracy, 85% plus, intercepting before target. Average combat engagement per sortie, 1.7. Fuel efficiency, high, short flight to intercept. Estimated without radar. Warning time, 5 to 10 minutes, coast watchers only. Positioning accuracy, 35%, standing patrols, guesswork. Combat engagement per sortie, 0.6. Fuel efficiency low, constant patrols. Radar allowed fighter command to do more with less. As German pressure mounted, this efficiency became survival. By early September, Luftwaffe pilots and commanders fully grasped what they were fighting. General Lieutenant Adolf Galland, commanding German fighter forces, wrote in his report to Göring, "The British have built an air defense system unlike anything we've encountered. Their radar provides early warning, allowing their fighters to scramble and climb to altitude before we arrive. Their ground controllers direct fighters onto our formations with precision. Their observer corps tracks us continuously once we cross the coast. We cannot achieve surprise. We cannot avoid interception. Every attack is met by fighters in optimal position. Our pilots are exhausted fighting continuous engagements. British pilots fight fewer engagements but always with tactical advantage. This system is their greatest weapon." But the revelation came too late to change strategy. Germany had already committed to the bombing offensive. Stopping meant admitting failure. On September 7, 1940, Göring made a fatal decision: shift from attacking RAF airfields to bombing London. The theory was that terror bombing would break British morale and force Churchill to negotiate. The decision gave fighter command breathing space to recover. Attacks on airfields stopped, damaged bases were repaired. Replacement pilots received additional training. Within 2 weeks, fighter command had recovered combat effectiveness. And radar continued tracking every German attack. September 15, 1940, the decisive day. German sorties, 1,120 WWII. RAF fighters scrambled, 630. German losses, 61 aircraft. British losses, 31 fighters. German bombers reaching London, less than 50%. The loss rate was unsustainable. German bomber crews were refusing to fly. Fighter pilots were demoralized. Göring's promise of easy victory had become a nightmare of continuous losses. On September 17, 1940, Hitler postponed Operation Sea Lion, the invasion of Britain, indefinitely. The Battle of Britain was over. Britain had won. Behind the statistics were people who operated the system and paid the price for victory. Elizabeth Scott continued as radar operator through the entire Battle of Britain. She worked 12-hour shifts, tracking German formations day after day. On September 15th, the decisive day, she tracked 17 separate raids. Each one meant British pilots would fight, some wouldn't come home. After the war, she was asked if the work was stressful. Her answer? Every dot on that screen was German aircraft coming to kill people. Every time I gave a position, I was sending our pilots into combat. Some would die. That knowledge never left you. But if we didn't do our jobs, more people would die. So we did our jobs. Squadron leader Patricia Clark, senior filter room controller, processed thousands of radar tracks during the battle. She made split-second decisions about which raids were genuine, which were feints, where to send limited fighter resources. Her decisions directly affected which British pilots lived or died. She suffered a nervous breakdown in October 1940 and was hospitalized for 3 months. She recovered, returned to duty, and served until war's end. She never discussed the breakdown publicly. Flight Lieutenant Peter Townsend survived the Battle of Britain, downing 6 German aircraft. He credited radar-directed interceptions for his survival. Without radar, we'd have been flying blind patrols. Wrong altitude, wrong position. Always reacting late. Radar put us in position to attack with advantage. It saved my life repeatedly. He was shot down twice during the battle, wounded once, and watched friends die in burning aircraft. He struggled with what would now be called PTSD for decades after the war. Oberst Johannes Fink survived the battle but lost 60% of his bomber wing. Of the 87 bombers he'd led on August 13th, only 34 were still operational by September 15th. The rest, shot down, damaged beyond repair, or so badly damaged crews refused to fly them. He was relieved of command in October 1940. In post-war interviews, he acknowledged, "We never understood what we were fighting. We thought we were fighting pilots and planes. We were actually fighting an integrated system that could see us from hundreds of kilometers away and direct fighters onto us with precision. No amount of bravery or skill could overcome that disadvantage. The Luftwaffe losses: air crew killed 2,698, air crew captured 967, aircraft destroyed 1,733, aircraft damaged beyond repair 643, total aircraft losses 2,376, RAF Fighter Command losses: pilots killed 544, pilots wounded 422, aircraft destroyed 1,547, aircraft damaged and repaired 1,100 plus. The exchange rate favored Britain, roughly 1.5 to 1 in aircraft losses. More importantly, RAF pilot losses were sustainable with replacement training. German losses, particularly experienced bomber crews, were not. The Battle of Britain didn't just save Britain from invasion, it revolutionized warfare by proving that integrated technology systems could defeat numerical superiority. Pre-Battle of Britain doctrine: numbers determine air superiority. Larger air force wins through attrition. Defending fighters are at disadvantage. Must patrol, guess enemy intentions, react late. Post-Battle of Britain reality: integrated defense systems using radar communication and central control can allow inferior numbers to defeat superior numbers through efficiency and precision. Technology and organization matter more than raw numbers. This lesson rippled across all military domains. Naval warfare, radar-directed naval gunnery, and fleet air defense systems became standard. U.S. Navy developed Combat Information Center concept directly based on RAF filter room model. Air defense. Every nation developed integrated air defense systems copying British model. Soviet Union, United States, Germany all built radar networks with central control. Combined arms warfare. Integration of different military branches through technology and communication became central to modern warfare. British success proved that coordinated systems defeat uncoordinated force. American military observers studying the Battle of Britain concluded, British victory demonstrates that technological systems providing information advantage can overcome material disadvantage. The side that sees the battlefield more clearly and coordinates forces more effectively will defeat larger but less coordinated enemy forces. This principle applies beyond air warfare to all modern military operations. This conclusion shaped American military development for the next 80 years. The Battle of Britain triggered a technological arms race in radar and electronic warfare. German response. After the battle, Germany massively expanded radar development. By 1943, Germany had sophisticated radar for air defense, Würzburg and Freya radars, naval operations, SeaTac naval radar, night fighter control, Liechtenstein airborne radar. But Germany never achieved the integrated system coordination Britain had demonstrated. German radar remained technically sophisticated but operationally fragmented. British advancement. Britain continued developing radar technology. Airborne intercept radar, allowing night fighter intercepts. H-2S navigation radar, allowing bombing through clouds. Centimetric radar, 10-centimeter wavelength, much more precise. More importantly, Britain exported the integrated defense system concept to allies, particularly the United States. American adoption. United States copied the British system extensively. Built chain home-style radar network for coastal defense. Sorties flown, 65,000 plus. Losses, 2,376 aircraft destroyed or beyond repair. Aircrew casualties, 3,665 killed or captured. Bombs dropped, 35,000 tons. British forces. Fighter strength, 600 to 900 fighters, varying. Sorties flown, 88,000 plus. Losses, 1,547 fighters destroyed. Pilot casualties, 966 killed or wounded. Radar stations, 51 operational throughout battle. Critical statistics. German bomber loss rate, 6.2% per sortie, unsustainable. British fighter loss rate, 1.8% per sortie, sustainable. RAF pilot replacement rate 240 per month, adequate. German bomber crew replacement 180 per month, inadequate. Developed combat information centers for naval vessels. Created integrated air defense commands. Trained operators using British methods. By 1944, American forces were operating the most sophisticated integrated combat systems in the world, all descended from the system Britain developed in the 1930s. Battle of Britain statistics, July 10th to October 31st, 1940. German forces. Aircraft committed, 2,800, peak. American adoption. United States copied the British system extensively. Built chain home-style radar network for coastal defense. Developed combat information centers for naval vessels. Created integrated air defense commands. Trained operators using British methods. By 1944, American forces were operating the most sophisticated integrated combat systems in the world, all descended from the system Britain developed in the 1930s. Battle of Britain statistics, July 10th to October 31st, 1940. German forces. Aircraft committed, 2,800, peak. Sorties flown, 65,000 plus. Losses, 2,376 aircraft destroyed or beyond repair. Aircrew casualties, 3,665 killed or captured. Bombs dropped, 35,000 tons. British forces. Fighter strength, 600 to 900 fighters, varying. Sorties flown, 88,000 plus. Losses, 1,547 fighters destroyed. Pilot casualties, 966 killed or wounded. Radar stations, 51 operational throughout battle. Critical statistics. German bomber loss rate, 6.2% per sortie, unsustainable. British fighter loss rate, 1.8% per sortie, sustainable. RAF pilot replacement rate, 240 per month, adequate. German bomber crew replacement, 180 per month, inadequate. Radar system performance. Detection rate, 95% plus, aircraft above 3,000 feet within range. False alarm rate, less than 5%. Average warning time, 20 minutes. System availability, 98% despite bombing attacks. Fighter interception success, 85% vectored onto target formations. Strategic impact. Operation Sea Lion, postponed indefinitely, September 17, 1940. German bombing offensive, continued but shifted to night bombing, less accurate. British morale, maintained despite heavy civilian casualties. War continuation. Britain remained in war, providing base for future operations. The numbers tell a clear story. Germany lost the Battle of Britain because they couldn't achieve air superiority. And they couldn't achieve air superiority because Britain's integrated radar defense system allowed inferior numbers to fight with superior efficiency. Post-war analysis. German official history, 1955. The Battle of Britain was lost primarily due to failure to destroy the British radar system and the command structure built around it. We attacked the towers briefly, but failed to understand that the towers were just one component of an integrated system. Destroying the towers without destroying the control centers, communication networks, and operational doctrine was insufficient. Moreover, we never developed comparable integrated defense for our own territory. By the time we understood what we were fighting, we had already lost the battle. British official history, 1960. The Battle of Britain was won by the integrated defense system developed by Fighter Command under Dowding. Radar provided early warning. Filter rooms provided coordination, sector controllers provided tactical direction, and fighters provided interception. No single component won the battle. The system won the battle. German failure to understand they were fighting a system rather than simply pilots and planes was their fundamental strategic error. September 15th, 2015, RAF Museum, London. 75th anniversary of the decisive day. Veterans and families gathered for the commemoration ceremony. Among them was Elizabeth Scott, now 99, one of the last surviving radar operators from 1940. Also present was Horst Fink, 93, son of Oberst Johannes Fink. His father had died in 1967, but Horst had spent years researching the Battle of Britain, trying to understand why his father's confident predictions had proven so wrong. Through interpreters, they spoke. "Your father's formation attacked on August 13th. Elizabeth said, "I tracked it from 95 miles out. I reported 40-plus aircraft, altitude 12,000 feet, heading northwest. That information went to Sector Control, who scrambled fighters. Those fighters intercepted your father's formation before it reached the coast. Horst nodded slowly. My father never understood how you did it. He thought British fighters were simply everywhere, or that British pilots were supernaturally skilled. He didn't understand the system. Nobody did. Not at first, Elizabeth replied. That was our advantage. Your pilots thought they were fighting pilots. They were actually fighting the system: radar detection, filter coordination, sector control, radio direction. The pilots were just the final piece. Could Germany have won if you didn't have radar? Elizabeth considered carefully. Possibly. Without radar, we'd have needed continuous standing patrols. We'd have been in wrong positions most of the time. We'd have exhausted our pilots. We might have lost through attrition. Radar didn't guarantee victory, but it made victory possible when raw numbers said we should lose. Horst showed her a photograph and his father in 1940. Confident smile, Iron Cross prominent. He was a good man, a good officer. He just didn't understand what he was fighting. None of them did, Elizabeth said gently. That's not a criticism. They were fighting based on experience from Poland and France. But we changed the rules. We'd built something new. By the time they understood, it was too late. Before leaving, Horst placed a small Luftwaffe memorial pin and a small RAF pin together at the museum's memorial wall. For the pilots on both sides, he said, who fought bravely in a battle where bravery wasn't enough to overcome technology. Oberst Fink flew his bombers toward England on August 13, 1940, confident that German numbers would overwhelm British resistance. He was flying into an invisible net that detected him at 95 miles, tracked him continuously, and directed fighters onto his formation with precision. By the time German commanders understood what they were fighting, they'd already lost the battle. The decision to briefly attack radar stations, then abandon those attacks to focus on airfields, showed that Germany never truly grasped that the radar towers were just one component of an integrated system. Modern lessons. Integration matters more than individual components. British radar was less sophisticated than German radar technically, but British integrated it into a complete system while Germany didn't. Information advantage multiplies force effectiveness. Britain's 600 fighters were effectively worth 1,200 because radar allowed them to fight efficiently. Understanding what you're fighting is prerequisite for victory. Germany thought they were fighting pilots. They were fighting an integrated system. This misunderstanding was fatal. Technology adoption requires doctrinal change. Germany had radar but never developed doctrine to use it as integrated defense system. Technology without doctrine is just equipment. Force multiplication through coordination defeats raw numbers. 600 coordinated fighters defeated 2,800 uncoordinated aircraft because coordination is a force multiplier. These lessons shaped modern warfare. Every military force now operates on principles Britain demonstrated in 1940. Integrated systems, information advantage, coordinated operations. German pilots scoffed at radar towers until bombers were shot out of the sky because scoffing was easier than acknowledging their doctrine was obsolete. They expected air warfare to follow familiar patterns. Numbers matter, mass attacks overwhelm defenses. Defenders react slowly. Instead, they encountered warfare transformed by technology and integration. Elizabeth Scott sat in front of a cathode ray tube tracking green dots, while German pilots flew toward England confident in their numerical superiority. Those green dots represented information that became fighter vectors, that became tactical advantage, that became victory. The Germans never saw the invisible net until they were caught in it. By then it was too late. The radar towers stood along British coasts, ugly metal frameworks that German intelligence dismissed as crude radio equipment. Those ugly towers and the system built around them saved Britain from invasion and changed warfare forever. Sometimes the most dangerous weapons don't look dangerous. Sometimes they look like radio towers. And sometimes they win wars by making the enemy fight blind while you see everything. German pilots scoffed. British radar operators tracked. British fighters intercepted. Germany lost. That's the story of how contempt for new technology leads to defeat, how integrated systems beat raw numbers, and how the side that sees the battlefield wins the battle. The lesson remains, carved in the wreckage of 2,376 German aircraft scattered across Britain and the English Channel. Never scoff at technology you don't understand. It might be revolutionizing warfare while you're busy laughing.